G'day folks, welcome to this summary of the first Soviet turn of this playthrough of OCS Case Blue. Now, I will say the Soviet turn was much faster than the German turns. They have less to consider. They're not sort of thinking about how to punch through lines. They're effectively just pulling back and trying to get in trace supply. So let me start at the top. This is the top edge of the scenario. We're way up here north of Voronezh. So here's Voronezh down here. We're just looking to the north of there. The Germans did push through with the 4th Panzer with the help of the 25th Motorized in this area. The Soviets have sort of tried to close that gap. They've put some big divisions in the way. Guards holding that rail line. Look, this won't hold them for long, I don't think. But hopefully it'll just slow down. If the Germans are having to re-punch through this line, particularly around here, if they're having to exhaust their effort doing that, then they're not driving towards Yelets or further to the south. And you can see elsewhere I've pulled away from this river and I'm just trying to hold that line along just sort of north of this river because this is where this main breakthrough is in the north, all these German divisions here. So I'm trying to protect my northern shoulder here around Yelets. Don't let them get across there easily. Don't let them kind of get in behind my lines. Like I said, I expect the Germans to hit here. I expect them to break through again with, this is a tough stack, but I expect they'll break through somewhere, for example, along here, get these units in trace supply, but it'll slow them down. All right, so that's what's happening here. You can see elsewhere I've got the 8th Cavalry Corps, 2nd Tank Corps moving south. Elsewhere around this area, I managed to pull back quite effectively. All these units were in trace supply. We can draw supply through to Stary Oskal here. And all these units here were able to draw supply, which is pretty good. Even down, because I control this rail line through here and then down to Novi Oskal, I can get a lot of these units in trace supply as well. So I was pretty okay throughout this area. Here are the lead elements of those German 23rd Panzer 29 motorized. I'm defending Ostrogosk, Svoboda, holding all the key bridges. I've got some reserves behind the lines. Not as many reserves as I would like. Key wish list item is I would love to have more reserves. There are some more as we look to the south, but just I've really been trying to move units as much as possible into these key positions. So you can see here 17th Tank Corps. I've moved them to this kind of key river crossing here. Just getting them in a good position to respond. I expect I'll be moving down the south here to kind of this vicinity around Rososh. This is where things get bad. Now this is because the Germans captured both Veluki and down the south here, this rail cross, this particular hex here was remarkably important because it cuts off Sarabelsk from supply, which means that this rail line is useless for the Soviets, which means that they're drawing supply from this rail line way back here. So Rososh is a detrainable hex, Kantemirovka is a detrainable hex, and then you've got Milarovo down the south. Now I could get some supplies up to the headquarters here. That's about it. So they can throw some supplies forward, but it's not a good situation. So out of supply, they survived their attrition roll, but you'll notice this big gap here. All the other Soviet units here sought to break out. At the start of the movement phase, they were out of trace supply. They sought to break out. I did manage to save quite a few, so they will re-enter as reinforcements, which is important. They'll come back on the eastern map edge. Otherwise, they would suffer horrific attrition because a lot of low AR units throughout this area, 1s and 2s, they would just die out. So they've given up that whole, this whole area. They just could not hold it, all because of cutting this rail line here. Veluki and just this, you can see the rail from Milarovo just swings across the north there. And because they did cross the river, or at least, moved across the river here, I've cut that rail line. And so the Soviets are in trouble. These guys, they were able to draw supply somehow. And down the south here, we can draw supply. We still have this rail line along here, and we have some good headquarters set up to throw supplies. So, but you can see here, so we've just kind of pulled back from Koibiashovo, trying to reform the line. It's, again, not particularly strong. I expect another breakthrough, but and again, I've got some reserves situated behind the lines, and big gaps north of here. So all of, like, from here, yes, there are pockets at Lysychansk, but you know, this whole area from Krasny Luk all the way up to Veluki is wide open. I guess the one thing that makes this not so bad is the fact that there's infantry in this area. There aren't too many motorized, mechanized formations throughout this region. So the infantry will certainly swarm across the Oskol River. They'll drive towards Starobelsk, and then we can anticipate, of course, 60th Motorized, 14th Panzer fueling up. And speaking of where, there you go, they've got their intrinsic trucks with them, organic trucks ready to fuel them up, and decide whether they go north or east or southeast. I don't think southeast is a good option right now. I think it'd be good to get across the Donets in force and then maybe push east. Here's the Don here, so we're going to try and push through. The Germans are going to try and push through this area. Meanwhile, this main force coming from the north. So you can see the Soviets have really tried to defend this road in strength. Pretty much every hex along this line is pretty well defended with at least 2 units. This is just west of Voronezh, a reinforced Voronezh. This is going to make it a challenge for the Germans to push south. They can probably hit Sarioskal, and there are ways. I mean, they can swing around here, but this is where they're aiming for. They wanted to hit the Don and then swing south. And this is just going to make it difficult for them. What this also does is it protects that rail line, protects that supply line, enables these units to get back. So it just kind of makes things a bit difficult for the Germans, slows them down. Keeping in mind, you know, that they can extend to here, flowing back to here, but you know, they can't maintain long supply lines for much longer. Once you get down to here, they're in trouble. So they'll need to kind of clear Sarioskal, move on to Novyoskal. Yeah, they might kind of, maybe even they'll shift along and just drive down this rail line, or leave that to the infantry. Hungarians are just here. We'll see. That's getting kind of a bit ahead of myself. But that basically, it's a Russian withdrawal, holding these key positions, holding Novyoskal, holding Sarioskal, holding the key rivers and their crossings up in the north, breaking out with all these Soviets here, holding Lysychansk. This is an important crossing here. It's both the rail line and this key road. It's technically a secondary road again. Elsewhere, you can see I've just pulled most of the 24th Tank Corps back, but one brigade has kind of just held that rail line and holding key towns in the area. So look, it's a bit of a blend of trying to hold a front line versus trying to hold key locations, trying to keep order where I can, trying to have these sort of strong points where I can't keep that good order. All right, so that's the end of the Soviet turn. As I said, it moved along pretty quickly and about to head into July, early July, with the Axis turn from July. Let's have a look. What is the actual turn? We're looking into the 1st of July, 1942. All right, folks, stay tuned. More to come.